Tell us a little bit of the history of the Maiden.
So the Maiden has a fascinating story. Back in the 1980s, the mid-1980s, there was a young woman in her 20s named Tracy Edwards. She really loved sailing and was really excited to enter the Whitbread around the world race. But the problem was none of the male sailors would let her sail on their boats. So she did the mid-1980s, I think 84, 85, race as a cook aboard one of the boats, but they didn't really let her do any sailing. And she tried again to get on a boat for the 89 to 90 race, but again, none of the men sailors would allow her on. So she said, you know what? I'm putting together my own boat. So she raised funds. She put together an all-women crew. It was a very, very difficult and daunting process to raise funds because nobody believed that they could sail effectively in this race. But she managed, against great odds, to do that. There's a documentary, was made in 2018 or 2019. The name is Maiden, which tells the incredible true story of this. So they entered the race. At the beginning of the race, all the male sailors and the media were taking bets that they wouldn't finish the first leg of the race. Not only did they finish the first leg, they completed the 33,000 around the world Whitbread race and took second in their class. The best result for a British boat in many, many years since the race had begun. So they did an incredibly amazing job and really broke the glass ceiling for women sailors. There's still been an uphill battle, but many of the crew went on to have fabulous careers in sailing. In 2014, Tracy had to sell the boat. She found the boat in great disrepair, bought it, raised funds again, put it back together, created a charitable organization called the Maiden Factor. And what they do is they raise funds and awareness to fight for education for girls around the world and other disenfranchised people. There are many girls today who don't get to go to school because their communities don't believe girls should be educated or because their families don't have money. So that's the current mission of Maiden, and they are traveling around the world again, raising funds and raising awareness for this issue. On their current trip, they left Europe in January, sailed across the Atlantic Ocean. Many of the women in red shirts you'll see here today were on that crew. And then they came into Florida, and they've been sailing up the East Coast. They came into New York Harbor last week, and they sailed up to Kingston last night.
And how have things changed for women in sailing now? Like, back then, it's where progress has been made, and perhaps where is there still room for attitudes and stuff to grow and become more inclusive and
So things are better, for sure, but there's still a lot of room for growth. I personally own a racing cruising sailboat, and for many years I was the only woman skipper in our sailing club right here in Kingston. And when I first got here and first started racing in about 2013 and 14, a lot of the male sailors looked at me like, what does she know? And I had to really kind of prove myself. But they have recognized that myself and many other women here are very skilled, and we've worked very hard. We've developed some programming with Kingston Sailing Club and the Hudson River Maritime Museum working together. We have created a sailing school, which of course is not just for women, it's for men and women and children. But we have a Women on the Water program where we mentor women and help them build their skills in a woman-supported environment. So I would say there have been a lot of improvements, but there's lots more to do.
And how does it feel to get the Maiden here at the museum then?
Incredible. It's just an incredible. I have to give a shout out to one of our board members at the Hudson River Maritime Museum, Dale Woolfield. She's the one who reached out to Tracy Edwards, the captain of Maiden. Tracy, by the way, is going to be coming to Kingston tomorrow, Friday, to join us. So Dale first reached out to Tracy, and we actually had this trip all planned for April of 2020. And you all know what happened in April of 2020. So 2.5 years later, or 2 years and several months later, we are back on track, and it's taken a lot of planning, but it's been very thrilling to have them come all the way up the Hudson to Kingston. When they came in last night, we had a flotilla of boats, about 25 boats, out to meet them, and it was really an exciting evening.